Welcome back to PJ Chen Design. This is PJ. Today we are going to talk about this really fashionable chain ring band, and you can stacking up in different metal material for stacking ring. Are you ready? Let's get started. For this ring band, you can build them as wide as possible and stitch them all together, or you can build in one by one like what I have and where is a stacking ring. You can also custom, you want them to go all the way to the bottom, or you just wanted to have 1/3 of the bottom open, which I always suggest because when you size a ring, that is where you cut your ring shank without worrying the pattern. Alright, that's starting from the scratch. First of all, we are going to use the circle command to decide what ring size that you wanted to have. In my case, I'm using 16mm. With this 16mm, then you're going to decide how your pattern going to flow. So we need to have them flat first. Let's go ahead to use the length command to know what is the circumference. In this case, it's 50.265. So I'm gonna coming into my top view and draw a straight line right here, and using exactly the same number, holding my shift, so I will get a line there. This line is represented when you have this circle flattened, and also it's the circumference. So we are going to design our pattern right here. I'm gonna coming into my top view and see what size of the link I'm going to do. I'd like to use the rectangle conic corner, so you just right click on the icon and then you can draw any size that you like, something like that. A little bit corner, something like that. Alright, and if that link is too big, you can always scale it down. I will scale it down on all my curve instead of the solid, because when you have a solid, you have to consider the thickness. And once you are done, that's coming into the front view, and we are going to use the conic corner to create another rectangle conic corner, and I'm going to snapping right here to do whatever size, right? Something like this. This time I can make them a little bit rounder, and I also wanted to align horizontal. Type it 0 here, so then we have our first link. Now you can give it a try for the surface using a sweep 1 rail. This is rail, this is your cross section, and don't forget to record a history because you can change easier. Alright, so that will be our first link. If you feel like this link is a little bit too fat, and what you can do is you can 3D scale it down for something like that. You can also take a look on the cross section and see if you want it to be thicker, thinner. In this case, I do want it to be a little bit thicker, right? So it's better for the casting. Alright, we also need to do another test. We are going to moving one on the side. Hit the Alt key for the copy and rotate it 90 degrees. And let's take a look if we like the look. Since this is actually going to be a ring, and then you don't have to worry about if it is actually movable, but we need to have it make sense, right? In this case, it doesn't make sense because it looks like completely jamming in there. So I actually going to moving this one up a little bit just for the illusion. And again, jewelry is all about the illusion and moving in a little bit. So if I make something like that, it makes more sense even though it is overlapping together. If you feel like this is overlapping way too much, you're gonna bring the curve and 1D scale a little bit wider. Alright, so in this case, since we still have our record history on, so we can continue to change it until we find something that we like and it doesn't look so weird. And then once you are done, we need to delete this one because those two links is no longer the same. We again are going to making a copy with the gumbo. Just hit the Alt key. And once you have the Alt key, using the gumbo, rotate it 90 degrees, and then we got something like this. And again, I'm going to move it up so it doesn't look like it's sticking inside too much. Alright, so that is our first set. Then what you wanted to do is do a test for those depends on what is the length you want. We are going to use this linear array, and we are going to set it up maybe for 7 set, and let's go ahead to manually to moving them. And you kind of need to eyeball it to make sure that they are looking like equal on both sides of the link. All right, you want to have a little bit gap there. If you don't want to have a gap, that's fine too. All right, in fact, that will be a better casting, but with this has a better look. All right, and double make sure that that is the length you want. If it is not, go ahead to make it even longer. It's always much easier to make them longer, and then you can delete them. So I'm going to do 10, and then again I'm going to move it here, holding my shift while I'm moving them, and to do something look like this. All right, now if that worked for you, go ahead to group everybody, and we wanted those two to be aligned, so let's go ahead to use align centers and to move it here. It will say you break the history, but that's okay. All right, one thing you want to pay attention to on both sides, this side, let's go ahead to ungroup it. This side is this orientation, the other side should be the same orientation, so I'm going to delete one of them there. And then again, let me group again, and that's using align centers to align together, so like both sides the same. All right, so we are going to flow it back, but double make sure that now this curve, if you take a look on my right view, it's right in the center of the object. I actually need for them to go a little bit lower, something like this, and I won't trim my object right now. I actually will trim it or bowling it a little bit later. We just need to have something intersect there so we can cut it off inside of a ring shank completely flat. All right, let's give it a try. First of all, double make sure that where is the seam, and how do you find the seam is you can using this analyze the direction. So you show object direction, you're going to see an arrow right there. That is where the seam is. So let's go ahead to rotate it 90 degrees right there, and that's just starting right here, which means my ring shank will be on the bottom instead of on the side. All right, that's using the command for flow. You can find it under the transform, and then you have a flow along curve. Those are the objects you're going to flow. Hit enter. This is the end, and we are going to click on the target. Make sure the ridge is equal no here, otherwise they will be really stiff. And then we're gonna click it right here. Once it's floating right there, double make sure it's in the correct direction. And at this point, if you feel like this gap is not have enough for your model, that you can always change. Okay, I'm gonna coming into the top, and I'm going to create a bottom of a ring shank. So this is where my curve is. So I'm going to creating a conic corner rectangle snapping into the quadrant, and I wanted to create something look like this. Having this one to move it back, I'll align horizontal center and type it 0 here. All right, so this is the ring. I mean, this will be a little bit over, and depends on how you like it. Let's take a look on the side. We can do is to remove those two links at the end, and then have it starting from here, or cut it, chop it off at the end and see which one work better. It's up to you. But what I wanted to do to make sure that they look good, we are going to come in with the surface tool for sweep one rail, and you got this rail and you got this cross section. Make sure you record a history. All right, so this is the point that we need to know where we are going to cut. It will look nicer. This actually have a more connection in between the two link, right? So I'm gonna coming into my front view, and I'm gonna draw a straight line snapping into the 0 and snapping right about here. This has a better connection right there, so I'm going to do something like this. And then I'm going to also mirror that to the other side. And that's using those two to trim it off the top portion. And to take a look if this is what you like. Of course, you will say break the history, but if you don't like it, you just need to go back. All right. Actually, I think this is all right there. So we are going to use the cap command. I also want them to be a little bit rounded. So let's go ahead to use fillet edges. And I'm going to do 0.25 on that side and 0.25 on this side. Alright, now we also need to use those two to trim it off where it is inside of a ring shank. That doesn't look good, right? So let's go ahead to trim it off. This one right here and this one right there. Okay, so once we trim it off, make sure that this one now is an open polished surface, and then we will need to cap them in order to be solid. All right, let's go ahead to Boolean union everybody on the top. All right, so now look at inside of a ring shank that we intentionally want them to be coming inside of a ring, so it has some intersection that we can Boolean off. So let's pick up the ring rail, and then we're gonna go with the solid extruded planar curve straight, and then let's go ahead to use a Boolean different this one out of this one. So now we have a clean cut. Let's take a look on the render view. And you can always do the two-tone if you want to, and that will be our demonstration today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I have a lot more trick and tip on my membership program. You are welcome to join and support me as a small YouTuber, and that way I can create more video for everybody. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next.